Good evening, Board. My name is Alexis Spiegelman, Moms for Liberty-Sarasota County. Regarding a discussion that took place in March of 2021,
Debbie Jackalone, Penny Reedinger, and Jane Goodwin
led the Zoom where they discussed guidelines for promoting safe and inclusive schools.
And we're not talking policies and procedures, we are talking guidelines, and I think that's an important point to make if your district is also thinking of doing the same.
Jane was careful to point out distinctions between policy and procedures and guidelines. Policy and procedures, that is the work that happens in the public view or in the sunshine. The guidelines were described best by Ms. Goodwin.
Procedures don't have to go before a school board. Policies do. And so I say to school boards, remember that, because sometimes it might be easier to start with doing the work of training and doing some of that work with the schools and with the students and not bring as much to the school district, because we have a wide range of views from our community as to what work we should be doing. So I will leave it at that.
Ms. Goodwin, we began working on this project over 10 years ago.
We had a superintendent who really didn't want to talk about this work or do this work. Move ahead several years, that superintendent has retired, and we had a new superintendent who came in, and that superintendent and I were close.
Sarasota County School District will welcome its new superintendent. The school board deciding to hire an internal candidate for the top job, Todd Bowden.
School board members had a lot to consider. 3 well-qualified candidates, but only one job. Some school board members worried Bowden didn't have enough experience in elementary education.
You look at my resume, I've never worked, taught, or been an administrator in an elementary school. So that criticism is absolutely fair.
He's extremely unhappy with the choice, saying the other candidates are more experienced. Also saying, I don't believe they ever had any intention of picking someone other than Bowden all along. They wasted everyone's time and turned their backs on Sarasota's teachers and students.
And the one thing that I wanted his tenure to start with was to speak to Dee Palazzo.
Dee Palazzo.
Good evening, Ms. Reyna. What a pleasure it is to be with you. So Equality Florida works on political things.
We rise up together against division and the forces of hate in this country. An attack on one of us is an attack on all of us. We show up. We speak up. And when you vote, we win. We vote for equality.
Yeah, this I could talk about forever, Ms. Reyna, because it's so important and it's not a heavy lift.
So Equality Florida takes care of everything. Is it everything in Florida that's LGBTQ concerned, or is it just certain?
And so I arranged that, and it happened.
The district is about to roll out a new set of guidelines that did not require school board approval or public input. That doesn't sit well with one board member. She reached out to 10 News reporter Isabel Mascareñas to make the public aware of these new rules and the role parents won't be playing.
The superintendent works for the board works for the people. And so one of my biggest concerns was that this would be done without any public discussion.
Sarasota School Board Chairwoman Bridget Ziegler is talking about an issue that's filled the school board chambers in the past: gender diversity for LGBTQIA students. Ziegler says board members received an email on Friday from Superintendent Todd Bowden with a draft of new gender diverse student guidelines written by a task force that last met in August 2017. A district spokesperson told 10 News school principals will receive the guidelines Wednesday. They're effective immediately.
Some of the language in there, one was the most alarming, that indicated that a student and a student alone would have the right to indicate a change in how they are addressed by way of pronoun, what facility usage they would have, and wouldn't require a sign-off of a parent. We all can support having a safe environment for our students, free from bullying, free from harassment. That is something that we will work on and create a culture, but that doesn't mean cutting out and sidestepping or ripping away the rights of parents.
School is often, as we hear from our kids, the place where they feel the safest.
Executive Director Nathan Brummer works for Also Youth, a safe place for LGBTQIA kids to reach out for help. The group was part of the district's task force.
It follows the best practices that are being implemented across districts across the nation. Provide for a case-by-case approach at the school site, given enough guidance to an administrator to do what they should do in taking care of all students, and giving them a little bit of leeway to work with the family if it's appropriate. They break big news to teachers because they've built the trust with those teachers.
Because these are guidelines and not policy, the superintendent can act without board approval.
You do not need permission from your parent or anyone else to be lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, questioning, intersect, or asexual.
Just minutes ago, the board gave Superintendent Todd Bowden a rating of 2.7 out of 5.
This has been a challenging year. It seems that there has been, for lack of a better term, almost crisis after crisis after crisis.
The Sarasota School Board faces a full house. Most are here to voice their opposition to Superintendent Todd Bowden's proposed new 4-year-long contract.
What about public input? Shouldn't the
No public input.
No.
There's been too much public input. Since we chose this superintendent, there's been too much politics at the table.
Wow, those comments from the Sarasota School Board Chair.
I think it is my role to put a contract together. It's a contract between the school board and the superintendent. I believe he's doing an exceptional job.
It's why Chairwoman Jane Goodwin told board members she felt she needed to draw up the contract for Superintendent Bowden on her own. She didn't even want public input.
You just said we've had too much public input, but these are tax dollars that pay for his salary. The public has a right to share what they think about this contract, don't they?
Well, they have shared it. They have shared
Not
many
this
things.
New contract.
Well,
I haven't seen this new contract.
What purpose does that do? What purpose does that do for us to have them share it?
It's their dollars. It's their money that's being spent.
So we should listen to them, and then what?
Goodwin added the new contract to the board workshop, and she expects the board will vote on it. The contract guarantees the superintendent an annual $5,000 pay raise for the next 4 years, topping his salary at $222,000. That's not all. The contract also includes a new requirement calling for a supermajority vote to suspend or fire him. Goodwin said she drafted the contract on her own after 2 board members gave Bowden a negative evaluation last summer, claiming the school board is now too political.
I think this may be the first time many of us are actually face to face since I've been elected, so it's important that I do say thank you, but more importantly, thank you for protecting public schools, because my election really kept the stronghold of the Democratic seats on the school board.
Teachers Union President Pat Gardner says it's Goodwin who's putting politics ahead of teachers and students.
It's not about student achievement. It's about, let's make sure our buddy's got his job for 4 years. There's nothing in here about student achievement. He didn't get the evaluation they wanted him to get, so they're going to change the evaluation. I wish I could do that for teachers.
A teacher survey done over the weekend shows 97% of the 1,475 teachers who responded say no to this proposed contract.
A pretty bizarre sign is posted outside the teachers union office in Sarasota.
Liz Crawford has been on the story for several days now. Liz, what's the deal with this sign?
So here it is. The sign says Recruiting 101. Don't recruit teachers in a strip club. Not something you see every day. The union president told us the sign is in reference to an incident involving Superintendent Dr. Todd Bowden. The Teachers Association is taking a shot at Bowden for visiting a strip club with other district administrators while he was in Detroit for a teachers conference, something Bowden admitted in a deposition. You see, the deposition is part of a retaliation lawsuit against the district by a former assistant principal. Dr. Lina Jimenez-Ruiz says Bowden retaliated against her after she filed a sexual harassment complaint against Bowden. The retaliation lawsuit is pending. Well, I did some more digging today. Dr. Bowden was in the hot seat more than once when he worked for Hillsborough County Schools. So according to his personnel record on file at Hillsborough, a female teacher filed a harassment complaint against Bowden in 2004 when he was assistant principal. 3 years later, the district had leadership concerns about Bowden after 11 staff members complained. Bowden resigned from Hillsborough County Schools in 2007 and took a job over in Sarasota. Then he took over as superintendent in 2017.
And we had a new superintendent who came in, and that superintendent and I were close.
And now the board is expected to vote on the superintendent's next contract.
The second in command at Sarasota County Schools is accused of serious misconduct. One of his employees came forward accusing him of sexual harassment and making a threat. Now the school board is bracing for a costly lawsuit.
The Sarasota County School Board has already hired outside counsel to handle this case, but the attorney for the alleged victim says money is not the goal here. The chief operating officer for Sarasota County Schools, Jeff Maltzby, has been on paid administrative leave since June. This all started after this woman came forward.
I have been insulted, belittled, and humiliated.
Maltzby's assistant, Sharina Bonner, says for months, Maltzby sent her hundreds of inappropriate text messages, many at night. She got concerned for her safety after she asked him to stop.
He sent her a text that says snitches get stitches.
The school board hired a third party to conduct an investigation. The board spent more than $71,000 on that report. It won't be released to the public until the 28th. The $71,000 report was paid for with taxpayer dollars. With attorney's fees reaching $360 an hour, a lawsuit would be extremely costly.
The drama surrounding Sarasota County Schools came to a head this afternoon. The school board called a special meeting to discuss a third-party investigation that found the assistant superintendent sexually harassed his secretary, and the superintendent didn't do enough to address sexual harassment complaints.
Before the board could even address that third-party report, they had to look into a settlement agreement proposed by the superintendent. Dr. Bowden proposed that he would step down as superintendent in exchange for another high-paying job and a 10-year contract.
I am so disgusted that this proposal was brought forward. How could you possibly think that this is something that we would truly consider?
School board member Bridget Ziegler fought back tears as she addressed the superintendent's proposal. Bowden says he's willing to take a suspension with pay for the remainder of the year in exchange for a new job as executive director of facilities, set to begin on January 1st, 2020. That new job comes with a 10-year contract and a $180,000 annual salary. He also wants severance pay and attorney fees paid by the district.
This is a compromise.
We have to take taxpayer dollars seriously.
This is a sham! Give him a new job! Are you kidding me?
Sharina Bonner, the woman behind the sexual assault and retaliation complaints, had an outburst of her own.
Everything you do is for media. That is it. You talk about your family, what about my family? That is it. That's it. You think I care about you getting another job? Do you know what I've been through? You don't even speak to me. I say good morning, you walk by and you look at me like I don't exist. You won't even speak to me in the mornings. You don't do anything. Caroline, I respected you until you went under oath and lied. I lost all respect. And what I'm not going to allow you to do is keep dragging my name through the mud. I didn't ask for Jeff to do this. I didn't ask for Todd to ignore me. Yeah, take me out, but this is not the end. Sick of this. I'm sick of this. I'm sick of this. You get out there and you put on your little smiley faces and pretend that you live in a white picket fence and all of you have dirt. The only time you want to bring up dirt is about Eric and Bridget. What about your dirt? Shirley, what about your active lawsuit? Did we talk about that? Did you talk about my kids being in danger? You won't. You called me a liar. You called me a liar. You paid $72,000 for a report that you want to question? $72,000 more than I make a year. I come here every day. I smile. I do my job, and y'all give me y'all the kiss every every day. Every single day you treat me like when I come to this place.
We have teachers that have said, and I quote, conservative teachers have had to go underground.
The district's issue is much bigger than the superintendent. They say fear of retaliation has kept district employees from speaking up.
100%. I am the perfect example of that. I came forward, and 2 years later, I lost my job.
Right now, there's rampant mistrust within this district.
This all happening in the wake of another sexual misconduct allegation, this time against a teacher who was arrested yesterday, and a claim that a complaint was made by a student 2 years ago and nothing was done. The public says they're fed up with all the problems.
Why are we consistently reading about problems and never solutions? It is your job, and just pointing a finger and saying he is gone is not enough.
Dr. Todd Bowden will walk away with nearly $250,000 in taxpayer money. This afternoon, board members approved a separation agreement. Under the deal, Bowden will collect severance pay, a reimbursement of legal fees, and other funds totaling nearly $250,000.
I don't think he should have lost his position over this.
Brand new video at 11 of a teenager partying it up at his assistant principal's Sarasota home, and it's all because of this Snapchat that an educator is out of a job.
This Snapchat video lasts roughly 5 seconds, but it cost a school employee her job.
I'm wondering how the faculty members allowed a student to be there.
Deputies say the video shows an adult woman bumping a teenage boy with her body. The teen, a Riverview High School student, appears to be drinking. And investigators say the woman was the registrar at Sarasota High School.
When a school bus driver arrested and accused of some inappropriate things to a child he used to take to school.
Right, Sarasota deputies say 71-year-old Leonard Valeri approached a 13-year-old in the Venice Middle cafeteria, played with her hair, touched her neck, winked at her. Cameras in the cafeteria caught it all. The victim tells authorities that Valeri would call her baby girl and say he loved her. He's now out of jail on bond. And the school district says if he comes back to work, he won't drive a bus or have any contact with kids, all pending the outcome of this case.
Now, major questions tonight following the arrest of a Sarasota County teacher on child porn charges. He resigned from a different school district back in the fall after an investigation into an alleged relationship with a teenager. And all new at 6 now, ABC Action News reporter Jake Peterson trying to find out how he ended up back in the classroom. Jake?
Yeah, good evening to you. Just last year, Quentin Peterson was teaching music right here at Lincoln Middle in Palmetto. But then he suddenly went to the administration office right here and resigned, quitting after allegations surfaced that he had an inappropriate relationship with a student. And even with some red flags in his past, he was able to get another job teaching at a different district, being around children. While detectives take months to look into Peterson's past, he is moving on with his life. He starts teaching math here at Booker High in February. Sarasota administrators trusted him too. They hired him after he resigned from Manatee County. A spokesperson saying he had good recommendations from his colleagues in Manatee County. In fact, his former boss at Lincoln Middle is listed as a reference. Peterson makes no mention of any investigation on his job application, but he was not facing formal charges when Sarasota County hired him. And Manatee County says it notified the State Department of Education about the investigation. Then this week, FDLE agents say they found nude images of a 16-year-old girl on his phone. Peterson is currently on administrative leave from Sarasota County.
This committee created the guidelines and then went on to train all of our school administrators, principals, teachers, and support staff how to use them.
We started out with intensive professional development for our student services team.
This is often referred to as professional development.
But the first thing I want to say broadly is professional development training, cultural competency professional development training. And I do them regularly. In fact, over 30,000 folks in this state, principals, assistant principals, school counselors, social workers, school psychologists, have all had professional development training on LGBTQ.
Yes, and it's important that we have GSA clubs in all of our schools.
Well, I was a very different, very
straight person. In my mind, at the time, I was cis, I was straight edge, I was a child of God, but I think that's all cis white men. So it was quite a surprise for my parents when I told them that I was joining the school's gay-straight alliance. Why did I, a former, mind you, former, cis-straight male, join the GSA? Why, for the same reason a cis-straight male does anything, of course. Coochie. Because my girlfriend was in it. That's why. We were the allies. So being who I was, a junior in high school who had been indoctrinated into conservative politics for my entire life. Oh my god, did they turn me gay there? Did they pink pill me when I wasn't looking? Speaking of turning people gay.
But we had an in-service for our GSAs, and we need to do work in our district with GSAs at the middle school level. So I'm going to be working in that effort, and we'll hope that we will have all of our middle schools, as you know how important middle school is, to get started. And
for example, the teacher, who was very cool and very gay. I actually had him for Spanish class, and he would tell all kinds of crazy stories.
Oh, hey everybody, I didn't realize you were here. Mr. D here. Welcome to this year's virtual club fair. I'm here to tell you about our GSA, or our Gay Straight Alliance, which myself and Miss Deanna are the co-advisors for, and that the club here in Long Beach Middle School has been awesome. We have such a great group of kids, and hopefully we'll have a bunch of you to join. You know, this club was created to have a sense of family and a semblance within our school. You know, it's just an awesome time. It's a time to come to hang out, relax, enjoy people's company, show your support, being an ally.
He was pretty cool, but he had some rules for the club that kind of sucked. He didn't make these rules, but they did have to be enforced, unfortunately. So we couldn't talk about things like self-harm, you know, suicidal thoughts, HRT, especially DIY HRT. Pretty much anything related to the struggles of being gay, we couldn't talk about. Because if we did, not only would he have to report us to the school counselor, and also it would endanger the club itself. So we had to try to stay quiet about that. So GSA was like the party side, the fun side. We'd talk about like how cool gay rights are, and then we would go talk about how much we want to kill ourselves at the playground.
Suing Clay County District Schools after they say their daughter attempted suicide 2 days in a row, following meetings with a counselor about gender identity confusion. The parents say school administrators never told them about those meetings and allege the district violated their parental rights.
Our 12-year-old daughter, this is an elementary school, okay, had tried to commit suicide at school by hanging herself.
Wendell and Maria Perez still emotional, talking about the day school administrators told them their daughter attempted suicide twice.
The school counselor alleged that it was because of a gender identity issue, and that they knew we as parents would not be in agreement because of our Catholic Christian beliefs.
Wendell Perez says the counselor didn't tell them about meetings with their daughter about gender identity confusion until after the suicide attempts. He says administrators said confidentiality issues prevented them from telling the Perezes.
This lawsuit is about protecting the rights of parents to raise their children in accordance with their beliefs, with their religious beliefs, and their understanding of science and biology without the interference of the state.
Civil rights attorney and advocate Carrington Meade says it is important for children to have a trusted adult they can talk to other than their parents.
That sometimes children just don't feel comfortable talking about things with their parents.
The lawsuit's focus, also the focus of a bill at the state level, House Bill 1557.
Every single thing that has happened in our school board, coincidentally, has shown up as a bill in Tallahassee. Go figure.
Another bill that is being misrepresented by the left is HB 1557, Parental Rights in Education. As is so often the case, the leftist radicals shrieking moral outrage and charges of bigotry are wildly overblown and not based in reality.
It's called Don't Say Gay. That is not on the floor today, but a protest certainly was. Dozens and dozens of students showed up right here inside the Capitol in front of the doors of the House and the Senate, as you see, yelling, "We say gay," is what their chant was. This was part of what we're told is a statewide walkout among high schoolers all over the state, including in South Florida.
Does the proposed Florida law really prohibit the discussion of sexual orientation and gender identity? No, it doesn't. Quoting from the actual bill text, it simply prohibits a school district from encouraging classroom discussion about sexual orientation or gender identity in primary grade levels or in a manner that isn't age appropriate. Under the bill, the school districts would adopt procedures that notify a student's parents of specified information, reinforce the fundamental rights of parents to make decisions about their child's upbringing, and prevent personnel from withholding specified information from parents. All of these things should be standard operating procedure.
To make sure that these clubs exist, we have to have so many social and emotional resources for all of our children, especially our LGBTQ plus children. And right now with the pandemic and COVID that's out and everywhere, the mental and behavior issues are very critical, and we have to have those resources out there for our children. Our school counselors, our mental health counselors play a key role and what happens to our children each day at school. But we have to partner with community organizations that really will work with the schools, will work with the homes, and will work together in the community to make sure that these needs are met, these resources are in place so that the students, our LGBTQ plus students, have everything that they need.
Org, rather, is backed by the abortion industry, but its videos address all kinds of sexual topics. Here's one of their videos on pornography. The video begins by asking, is it normal to watch porn? Here's their answer.
Yes, it's normal. Lots of people watch porn. After all, it's right there and it's free.
Find out more about porn right here on Amaze.
Find out more about porn right here on Amaze. Oh, thanks. I'll send it to my rest of my 5th grade classmates. That's on YouTube. So we reached out to amaze.org this afternoon. We want to know who these videos are aimed at. Obviously small children. They didn't really answer our question. Instead, they attacked us with maximum self-righteousness. Quote, your show's repeated attacks on curricula and resources proven to protect children of all ages is deeply disturbing. Oh, so they're talking to little kids about porn, but we're the creepy ones. Spend some time at amaze.org's website and YouTube channel, and you'll find a lot more cartoons like this, and all of them are clearly intended for young children. In one video, there's a simulated image of a child furiously masturbating in front of porn on a computer monitor. Not joking, look it up.
I want to add a couple things. It all starts in the classroom and those relationships between the classroom teacher and the kids.
Deb Gaglione talked about how this training gave them the opportunity to gauge how teachers' mindsets were and then influence those if they weren't in agreement with the groupthink.
That was our opportunity to learn about the mindsets of our administrators in the school district. It also gave us a starting point to help us decide where we needed to focus in more on professional development and creating an awareness about these guidelines and how we could further support schools who weren't quite there with their mindset.
Ms. Brown mentioned several times that the purpose of the meeting is to conduct the business of the board and that the board is responsible for creating policy and the superintendent is responsible for executing that policy. My question is, who is that the board is creating the policy for? If not for the public who they are supposed to serve? Who is informing the policy that you are creating, if not the citizens of Sarasota County that you were elected to represent? Lately, it seems like only unelected organizations like the teachers' unions, CDC, NIH, the FSBA.
When I was elected to the presidency of FSBA, I decided that the most important work for us to do, and this was previous to COVID, but not far before COVID was changed.
You work for the public, which is why it strikes me as strange that you would consider public feedback an interruption and not part of the business of the board. We have a representative form of government. Therefore, in order to carry out your responsibility in a competent way, policy decisions would need to be informed by the community stakeholders that you represent. Your purpose is to carry out our business, our wishes, our agenda, not yours.
To look at National School Board Association, NSBA, as a really strong partner and a leader in this work.
September 29th, the political organization asked President Biden to involve the FBI in local school board issues. 5 days later, the Department of Justice does just that. Mr. Attorney General, was it just a coincidence that your memo came 5 days after the National School Boards Association letter went to the president?
So I read the letter, and we have been seeing over time threats.
Whoa. I didn't ask you. So you read the letter. That's your source?
So let me be clear. This is not a prosecution or an investigation.
Is there some study, some effort, some investigation someone did that said there's been a disturbing uptick, or you just take the words of the National School Board Association?
When the National School Board Association, which represents thousands of school boards and school board members, says that there are these kind of threats.
Merrick Garland is the Attorney General. He's the top law enforcement official in this country. He should be above reproach. But when he sent out this controversial memo on October 4th, it raised a lot of eyebrows. This is the memo, of course, where he has directed the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's offices to mobilize against parents who have the audacity to exercise free speech and go to protest controversial curricula at their local school board meeting. This is not a federal issue. So beyond the fact that it looks nakedly partisan, we have a deep concern about an ethics problem that has arisen. It has been reported everywhere that the Attorney General's son-in-law is the co-founder and owner of a company, get this, that promotes this far-left curricula that is the subject of many of these parents' protests.
So at the same time he's aiming federal firepower that's meant for terrorists at parents making alleged threats against school boards. His son-in-law is making big bucks from those school boards. One report said $12 million in at least 22 different school board contracts.
I wanted to talk to you about a few things on the agenda. From what I've heard, Neola is writing policy across the state of Florida. One of the policies that they're working on is the one that's going to limit our First Amendment right to petition our government. I wanted to understand what the relationship is between Neola and the FSBA, which Ms. Goodwin used to be the president of.
In partnership with Equality Florida. And Neola, down there at the bottom, is our policy partner. And they make sure that we have equitable policies within our district that do follow state statutes.
I noticed you're leading the Neola conversation, so I wasn't quite sure about that. Are parents paying to have their First Amendment rights taken away? If you look at the policies across the state, they seem to be kind of like cookie-cutter policies.
And so as we continue to talk about some of the things that we're doing, we have surveyed each one of the Florida school districts to gather information about those districts' policies and the procedures and the actions that they would be taking. Along with that, we've also asked for a toolkit that can be used to share information about the policies and provide a continuum, including assessments of where the districts are and the steps that need to be taken to move forward as we address equity in our counties.
I'm here to talk to you today about the purchase of Neola. I have to say that the reasons given by our board during the workshop for committing to purchase Neola, a program that costs almost twice as much as the program we already have, seems at best just disingenuous. Some of the reasons that we were given included using Neola's policy templates with a projected cost of $94,000 versus NEFEC, our current program that costs only $68,000, will require less hours of staff time. However, later in the conversation, we were told that not only would this still require staff hours, but it would also call for a new project management position to be created. Ms. Brown emphasized the importance of the program, insisting that we must ensure our policies are in compliance with state statutes.
And Neola, down there at the bottom, is our policy partner, and they make sure that we have equitable policies within our district that do follow state statutes.
Policy 2.27, Section 1 of the board policy regarding special committees states that all meetings of the school board committees shall be open to the public. This policy has not been observed by the Equity Committee, which has been operating in secret since its inception. Most people do not even know who is on this committee. The meeting minutes, well, those are confidential too. I have personally requested meeting minutes from Dr. Moore, and I was told that she could not publicly provide those meeting notes because what is contained within the minutes is just too complex for the rest of us to understand without their help.
And we now have just hired, we have a new superintendent. We have a new equity director who will start work on Monday, which we haven't had before. So I'm really excited about the changes and the things we're doing.
The last item is I just wanted to bring some clarity on the Equity Committee. I know I get some emails and I get phone calls, and I just want to make sure that we're clear and transparent. And so,
you know what else is missing from the school board agenda? Transparency. What is the Equity Committee up to, and why are they excluding the ESC children whose parents keep coming to every meeting begging the district for help?
And as you know, for a year now, that committee has been together talking and has created the equity plan.
Procedures don't have to go before a school board. Policies do. And so I say to school boards, remember that, because sometimes it might be easier to start with doing the work of training and doing some of that work with the schools and with the students and not bring as much to the school district, because we have a wide range of views from our community as to what work we should be doing. So I will leave it at that.
I was raised to believe that if you have to hide what you're doing, you probably shouldn't be doing it.
And as you know, over the year, they have met many times and have created the equity plan. I also was under the impression or told that it sounded like the committee was a secret committee, and I just wanted you to know it wasn't at all a secret committee. And
Florida is nationally recognized for its strong support for government in the sunshine. And this commitment is reflected in our state constitution. That being said, I'm having trouble reconciling the above statement with the lack of transparency regarding some of the policies and great thinking that's going on, and to quote one of your workshop panelists, behind the scenes. I'm also wondering why those that were actually elected to represent the people are not privy to what the people driving the policy are actually up to. When a board member asked if they would get a copy of the PIM plan being discussed during the workshop, the response was that they would get a Cliff Notes version. Why is that? I find it odd, given the sunshine laws, that the parents aren't also given access to these policy discussions or minutes from the meetings, especially when it will direct our policy affecting our children for the next 5 years. I also found it a bit odd that our equity committee that is developing other plans for our schools has also been secretly meeting. Where do we get the minutes for these meetings? And what are they doing? And what is their strategy? And why are we just getting this information when you're ready to vote on it, when this has been going on for months and months? What about government in the sunshine?
I was informed this week that that type of committee is one that should be in the sunshine, and I just didn't realize that.
This is the same board that publicly contemplated, and to quote Mr. Edwards, how to break the law regarding the illegal mask mandates. This is the same board whose majority decided to thumb their nose at our governor, the Department of Education, the Department of Health, emergency rules, to elevate their personal will above the will of our constituents and the rule of law. These are only a few examples, but I must say our policies are only as good as the willingness of our board to follow them. Not only when the policy happens to serve a particular interest of their own.
How do we support religion along with freedom, the freedom of sex and gender?
Well, when we're talking about freedom of religion, I'm not sure that we have a place in the school system.
What about the non-discrimination statute that you are contorting to falsely establish a basis for your equity committee?
And Jane, are you still there?
I am.
Okay, well, just let us know. We're unable to see the chat, so
well, I was answering a few of the chats, and then I thought we would go over some of them at the very tail end of our meeting. One of the questions that you might want to answer right now was that, do we make accommodations for people who would get upset with our allowing a student to use the bathroom of their choice. And I said, no, I didn't think we did that.
So Jane, do you mean if a female, there was a student who was using a male bathroom who was biological female and the males were upset about that, do we accommodate those? Is that what the question is?
Yeah. Now he is saying his daughter was sexually assaulted by a male student wearing a skirt in a girl's bathroom. The Loudoun County Sheriff's Office confirmed the case reportedly, and the student was reportedly arrested.
I'm here for my daughter, Ella, who goes to Sarasota High. Just the other day, I picked her up from school and I took her to get a manicure, and she fainted and we had to call the ambulance. She then told me, she's a freshman, by the way, she then told me that she avoids drinking water or any liquid at school so that she doesn't have the need to use the bathroom. I, questioned her about it, and she said, everybody knows that you don't go to the bathroom at that school. And I said, what do you mean? And she explained that there's a lot of vaping, there's actually sex happening in the bathrooms, and other things like selling drugs. And that I find out from a friend who had 2 children who went there, and she told me, yes, that's like a happening thing. And my kids never went to the bathroom in 4 years.
So once again, we are purposely vague.
So I would like to know, how can the community, and most importantly parents, gain access to these internal guidelines that govern what happens at school and outside of the sunshine? We are here because we have a problem with the policies on your agenda. As others have already articulated, equally so, we are here because of what is missing from our school district's agenda. Number 1, academics. So we had a 3rd grade reading level, which the 3rd grade reading level, it indicates how well a student will perform for the rest of their academic career. 3rd grade test scores in Sarasota took a dip. They were only 66% of 3rd graders scored a standard at reading at grade level or above. Sarasota's test scores were down 4% percentage points from 2019. Sarasota ranked 5th in the state, coming behind St. John's. They used to be like number 3, I believe. That's why we bought our house here. 3rd grade reading scores are considered the key indicator of a student's future success.
Our school board attorney, certainly we access quite frequently to just make sure we're on the right path and we're not creating any problems. And as you can imagine, we had a lot of discussion.
As I reviewed your 2021 equity policy, what struck me most was the lack of any historical data supporting the creation of this committee. Essentially, Sarasota taxpayers are being asked to endorse an experimental ideological policy written by a largely secret committee who for the past 4 months failed to conduct the most basic research necessary for developing a successful strategy to close the achievement gap.
There are like 3 charges that I have, and they're big overall. One, of course, is addressing the achievement gap.
What was reported by our newly formed equity committee this morning, who strangely focused predominantly on strategies impacting high school students when data confirms that grades 1 through 3 are most crucial to determining future academic success, Sarasota County increased the achievement gap.
My last one piece I did want to bring up is I've done some, and I still need to dive in more, but one of my questions is, when we look at other districts that have implemented an equity committee, an equity policy, various strategies, particularly focused on trying to close that achievement gap. Are you familiar with any success stories? Can you reference them?
Well, I think what I have found is a number of and I've been in touch with many in our state and even outside of our state. And interestingly enough, a lot of them are new.
This should not be surprising, given that all the data we have suggests that equity committees actually make the achievement gap worse. The Educational Opportunity Project at Stanford University has student test scores data available for virtually every school district in the country. The analysis presented here suggests that the existence of diversity officers in schools districts may actually exacerbate achievement gaps. In other words, diversity officers may be implementing counterproductive educational interventions. A simple comparison with achievement gaps in districts with and without diversity programs shows that gaps are larger in districts that employ these programs. In districts without a diversity programs, the average black student is 1.9 grade levels behind the average white student on standardized test results. In districts with diversity programs, the achievement gap is half a grade level larger, with the average black student being 2.4 grade levels behind the average white student. This pattern repeats itself for the white Hispanic and the non-poor poor achievement gaps. The gap between the average white and Hispanic student on standardized tests is 0.44, or nearly half grade level larger in districts with a diversity program than in districts without them. The gap between the average non-poor and poor students is 0.37 grade levels larger in districts with diversity programs than in those without them. I find the school board's approach to non-discrimination, well, a bit discriminatory. The process of picking and choosing which non-discrimination precepts to uphold based on which groups of people they are designated to protect from discrimination is in fact discriminatory. We cannot create an entire department for one group of people while ignoring our ESE students in the name of equity. It is hypocritical for our board to break the non-discrimination clause in Section 6 of the Department of Health Emergency Rule, segregating masked and unmasked students, then launch an entire program based on the non-discrimination statute. The non-discrimination clause referenced as the basis for founding your equity committee does not at all call for a committee to be created. It calls for data to be collected. Again, you would think that if the district was going to go beyond what the statute calls for, they would first gather data to determine the proper course.
Hey, what is the data telling us? What is the data telling us?
Lay the groundwork on some of this. As you recall, I came on board August 10th, and I think it was August 11th is when we started having our professional development, our training, and we had to kind of stop that to back up and punt, so to speak, and just figure out what we were going to do. And part of what I decided to do was to create this equity committee.
When we began to envision this panel weeks ago, George Floyd was alive in Minneapolis. Tony McDade had not been shot by police in Tallahassee. We began the planning in the aftermath of Ahmaud Arbery's killing by white vigilantes just 2 hours over the Florida border.
Could it be the forces behind the concept also subscribe to the notion that we can eliminate racism by employing more racism? Thank you.
Thank you.
And now this conversation comes as people have taken to the streets, where the brutality that is a common occurrence in black neighborhoods is now on display for the entire nation and the entire world. America is at a crossroads. In the words of demographer James Johnson, we are a country in a demographic convulsion, a nation increasingly of black and brown people, young black and brown people, and older white people. And the shifting demographics have created a panic that expresses itself not only in the words and obvious actions of white supremacists, but also in the fear and discomfort and silence of white people who see that shift and wonder what it might be like to no longer be numerically the majority, but instead part of a pluralistic society, what it might mean to be a minority in a country that has not treated minorities well. So it was with that spirit that we began this. In this context, we think it is critical that the LGBTQ community be vocal and visible, unafraid to say the words white supremacy, unafraid to speak out to end the violence, state-sanctioned and hate-sanctioned, against the black community, and to remember that this is our fight. We do not show up to it as allies, but we understand that our liberation, that our freedom is tied to ending this system.
Or saying this is just isolated cases. This isn't really that bad. Because I think this is an absolute red. I won't send my kids to college. I am not paying for my kids to go to college. They want to go, you can earn the money. I am not paying someone to program you into a robot.
But now it's in pre-K through 12, and you are paying through your tax money.
I know.
It's despicable. So what do you say to someone that wants to put their head in the sand? Shortly after I lost my reelection on my school board in Brevard County, Florida, they came out with their gender support plan. Mm-hmm. And I put it out online immediately. And I had great trust in my community through a lot of people. I'd worked for 4 years, did a really, I think a pretty good job. And people immediately were reaching out and saying, I need the link from the school district. There's no way this is happening in our county. There's just no way. I mean, they didn't believe me. I had to go find the actual thing and put it out there because people are shocked when you show them. I'm afraid they're going to get a little desensitized to some of this stuff and just keep moving. But it's unacceptable. It has to stop. We cannot allow school districts, states to intervene between parents and families.
All right. If you want to get involved, go to momsforliberty.org. I cannot recommend this highly enough. Moms will make all the difference in the world. Dads will too. But when you're fighting as a dad or a mom, look at the difference between any other movement and what's been happening at the school boards. That's because it's dads, moms, and kids.
We take dads. We have 2 chapters out of our 180 that are run by dads. We take aunts, uncles, grandparents, just concerned citizens. We need all hands on deck. We are laser focused right now on school boards and school districts. And our chapter meetings, they literally are, their job is to go over school board agendas. They are told, you pull the school board agenda, and as a chapter, that is what you do. And we teach them about budgeting, school board budgeting, and where they're hiding stuff. We teach them about consent agendas and how they hide things they just want to push through without discussing publicly. And they are finding things, but they have to get involved with our chapters in the local level.
Momsforliberty.org. Momsforliberty.org. Please go there now. Momsforliberty.org.